Hey, good morning, everybody. Uh, Thanks for joining us today. We're kind of back into the swing of things, and this is the second part in our ESTeem Software Suite webinar series. And today we're going to be taking a little bit closer look at the Horizon Network Manager. And to kind of set the tone and kind of where this came about, really what we're kind of looking at is when we look at the majority of the markets that ESTeem is involved with, and this is basically very heavily focused on heavy industry. And so our core markets are water, wastewater, oil and gas, mining, material handling, overhead cranes, factory floor, autonomous equipment. We do a lot within ag, power and energy. What we're starting to see here is that within this is that data itself is becoming much more crucial, and that the networking demands in these new industries or in these heavy industries is ever increasing. Now, with that, especially when we start getting into the wireless side of things, is that the wireless is now not just an afterthought. It's actually an essential component of that overall network architecture. Really what this does is it enables a completely connected enterprise or the industry 4.0 in which we're bringing everything together. At the same time, there's a lot of new capabilities such as mesh networking, redundant routing, roaming, increased cybersecurity that honestly require additional, sometimes intricate type of configuration that at times can actually look and feel pretty daunting and complex. So really what we set out to do is we develop basically the ESTeem Software Suite. And really what this is done for is ultimately is just to simplify the complex configurations that we've got here. It also provides visibility into a wireless network health and performance, and then offers tools for your troubleshooting as well as diagnostics. So each of these individual utilities that's within this suite can be run independently, but also many of them are nested within each other so that you can jump around from utility to utility and quick launch and try and keep it a little bit more of a natural workflow. The other advantage of this is that we can roll all these utilities out under one update to the utility or the suite, whether that's a new capability or something that's been added, a specific request for a customer that we can do. So when we look at this, it is something that's available. Just kind of as a quick note, it's up on our website. It's a free download that you can do as well. So this is something that all the connected parts and pieces of the software will also be downloaded and installed automatically. So when we start looking specifically at the Horizon Network Manager, it's really kind of the heart of the software suite for our Horizon series users. Each ESTeem Horizon radio has been built with a web server internal to it that you can actually go through page by page within the configuration. But for some users, it can still be a little bit confusing, bewildering. So what we wanted to do is to make things in a much more visual platform to where we could represent what that network was looking like and get a better view of that. And so we've created this graphical interface tool to be able to bring that to life on your computer itself. So within this, basically what we have added is the ability to set the mode of operation. We can configure the mesh. We can configure the link priorities of within that mesh. We can address the link security of each one of those legs. We can control the data rate. We can have dynamic thresholds that can be adjusted through here, as well as the throttling. On the flip side of this, when we get past the configuration side, is that we also want to be able to deliver a little bit better insight into what that network is doing and the health of it or the performance. So what you'll be able to see here in just a few moments is that we can display what the signal strengths are of each of those legs, what kind of a data rate they're achieving, what the connection status is, even down to what the spanning tree protocol port status of this is. And so really what we're looking at is kind of a full-blown both configuration and monitoring tool. And so kind of enough about why we what we did, why we did it, because really everybody's here to really look at, okay, how does this thing work? So Eric Marsky is with me. He's actually the ESTeem's resident wireless guru, and he's going to really kind of take us into a deeper dive of the Horizon Network Manager, give you some examples, and go live with this so that you can really kind of get the feel of it. And this is all being recorded, and it'll be posted up on the website, so you can go back and review it. You can take this with you, and so if you're getting caught saying, hey, do I need to take a note or just pay attention? Just go ahead and pay attention, and you can always come back to it. So with that, I'll quit talking and turn this over to Eric and have him dazzle you with what this thing can do.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I'm excited to kind of go through how these actually a little more detail on how each of these utilities work. We gave a good introduction on overall software suite a little while ago, but now we're going to take a look at more of the very specifics of what this can do. And so the easiest way to kind of present this, I think, is there are some key features that this Horizon Network Manager provide. And what we'll do is we'll go through what those features are, and then from that, we'll then give a demonstration on each one of those features and how it's actually used in the network. The biggest thing, as Dan mentioned to you, we're taking a program into more of a visual format. What we're going to do is we're actually going to take and program the radios now with just simply putting them on the screen, and then you lay them out to how your network would actually look. And then making the links between those radios is simply just a matter of drawing lines between them. Now, you can use this utility at any stage of the programming. You
Hey,
don't
Eric,
necessarily even, yeah.
I don't know if you're trying to share your screen, but it's not popping up here.
Okay, no, I haven't shared the screen yet, but let me
Oh,
do that real
sorry.
quick. That's all right. Here, I will share this screen.
All right.
Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and bring this first graphic up here real quick and kind of talk through this a little bit. Go into this is the beginnings really of our Horizon Network Builder. And so from this utility, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go in there and set up a very small network. We're going to put two radios in there, draw a line, show you exactly how that works. The beautiful part of this is that you can actually perform this in any stage within the network setup. You don't necessarily have to have the radios in hand. You can actually use what are called dummy radios, where it just is a placeholder. And then once you receive the radios, everything is based upon the serial number. So then you can replace those dummy radios with the very specific serial numbers. You can also list them out by the serial numbers themselves, or you can get as complex to where if you had them all sitting on your desk, you'd apply antennas to them, power, and then you could actually bring them all up and discover all the radios at once, lay out who they're going to, and then create the links between them. So it really doesn't matter what stage of the network you're actually doing. This utility will actually be a very powerful tool for all of those. Inside of that too is that as you create and add radios within this network, it will actually start changing colors of the individual links to tell you which sites within that network are the ones that are going to be affected by adding those radios within that link. So they'll actually change color based upon which ones are affected to those links. A key feature to it and a really nice thing is that every radio's configuration within one single file is saved within this Horizon Network Manager. So you don't need, if you've got 10 different radios, you don't have to have 10 individual files saved for those. One Network Information Manager saved file will actually save every configuration and their location within the network. Once that's done, you can actually do this for not only actually saving and changing things if you ever needed a spare, you could use it for that. You can also send that file to support and allow us to open up that file to figure out what is potentially going wrong or give advice on how to not only troubleshoot with the system you're going into, but if you're actually going to add on to it, which sites are going to be necessary. There's a really nice feature in there which is called a snapshot, which will take a picture, have your network layout, and it also provides some key information to it as far as the frequency, the number of radios, and I'll show you what the powerful features that is. There are also the ability to go in and change what we call global variables. So if you're going to be doing firmware updates to every radio within your network, it's not necessary that you do this on a one-by-one basis. This Horizon Network Manager will actually allow you to select all the radios or even a subset of radios that you wanted to do a firmware update, and you can just simply press, firmware update, and all those radios will then receive it based upon where they're at within the network. The last and final thing that we'll be showing you, and Dan had mentioned there, is kind of the opposite side of the configuration, which is the monitoring. It allows us to create a visual, quick look at the current status, data rate, signal strength, and routing of each one of the radios. So let's go ahead and take a look really quickly at how this is actually done. So the first thing that we're going to start with is the Horizon Network Manager, the first introductory screen. As you notice here, we have the ability within here to discover networks. We can create a new network. We can load a previously saved network. If you have a network or multiple networks on the screen, you can select one and hit View Selected Network or double click on it. Will also get you the same thing. And also, if you've got too many different networks and you want to concentrate on any one of them, you can just select one and hit Remove Select Network. It just pulls it off of this list. It actually won't remove it from anywhere within the computer. So let's go ahead and start with some very basic, simple network. So the easiest way to do this is we just click New Network. Then it's going to ask us what type of radio we're going to do. Well, we have a 900 megahertz horizon, a 2.4 gigahertz, 4.9, and 5.8. So, of course, the first thing we're going to start with is which type of radios we're doing. Well, currently for this demonstration, we're actually going to be using Horizon 2.4 MIMO radios, or multiple in, multiple out radios. So we'll select the 2.4 gigahertz, and then we start selecting some key parameters that are going to be common for every radio within that network. The first one is the SSID, which is the network name. All radios within the same network will be identified by that SSID. In addition to that, we have the ability within there to adjust the channel bandwidth. Now, the 2.4 radios are actually Wi-Fi compatible. So there are actually only two different bandwidths that are compatible with that, which is the 20 megahertz and the 40 megahertz bandwidth. And all those notes are actually going to be shared within the individual screen. The 900 megahertz allows you to actually do bandwidth separation, but it doesn't allow Wi-Fi. So of course those notes won't be there. From there, you also can select what specific channel or what frequency channel all the radios will be integrated into. If you don't really know what frequency channel you're going to be doing, this is a good starting point. You can actually start with a channel that's assigned to you, or if you've got the capability through either a site survey, we also have an AirScope product that will actually allow you to essentially monitor the individual frequencies that are active in your area. And that's something that we have those for sale, or of course, that's something that you could rent from us also if that's big unknown variable. So for this type, what we're going to do is just go ahead and select channel 6 because what we're going to do is just make a very simplified network to begin with. So we've laid out all of these key global variables and we're going to select OK. Now, as you notice on here, what this is doing is this is telling us that we have a new radio network that's at 2.4 gigahertz. The SSID is ESTeem. We're set at channel 6, which is 2437 megahertz. It's a 20 megahertz wide bandwidth, and we currently have 0 radios within that network. So what we need to do now is build this out. So I'm going to select that network and hit View Selected Network. And what it's going to do is it's going to drop it on my other screen. So I'm just going to pull it over here. Okay. Now, what we have really is kind of a blank slate. Now, as you see within this, we have many things that we are going to be going through here in this presentation. Under File is where we open networks, save networks, create the snapshot. We actually can go in and edit specific variables within there, global settings, individual links. make changes to specific radios. If you have multiple networks available that are configured or already pre-programmed, you can swap between those individual networks, the monitoring, and the settings. We're going to go through each one of these in a little bit more detail. So for our first one, we're going to actually create a simple radio network. So this is actually done by starting with hitting the button that says radio, and we're going to add a new radio. Now all the radios are based upon their serial number. So if you don't know the serial number for it, that's where we actually go in there and we can actually add this one that says radio, new dummy radio. We just need to tell it what kind of radio placeholder we're going to place on the screen, and we can just select OK. This will be sitting there as a simple placeholder. But if you do have the radio or you have a list of the serial numbers you're going to be putting in, you can select new radio, enter in the serial number. So I'll just make this 23456. And as soon as the serial number is valid, you see on the screen it changed from red to white. So that's a valid serial number. You can click OK, and it will add it to the screen. Now, as you notice on here, there's quite a bit of information that is put onto this visual. It'll tell you the MAC address of that radio, what mode it's currently operating in. It's a Horizon 2.4 MIMO radio, and the serial number that I typed in there. Each one of the radios that we're going to add to this network, that key information is also going to be contained within that. So to make a radio link between these two, you just simply start at one of these boxes, click the mouse, drag and drop it into the other radio. Now what we've actually done is we've simply created a wireless link between these two radios. Could not get any simpler. But as Dan stated before, the purpose or one of the key features for this allows us to go and create much more complex networks. Now, what a more complex network he had on the diagram, one of the network layouts that we've used for quite a while and kind of explaining how these network mesh works. So let's go ahead and kind of simplify our screen a little bit and pull the background graphics off of there. But as you can see, what we're going to do is we're going to communicate from a control room out through multiple repeaters out to a destination um, um, facility here and a remote pump house. And this one's even a little more complex. We have a mobile device within it that can actually roam around and pick up any one of these links. The key to this really is going to be, how does this operate? Well, you see all these red lines on here. What these are is these are the mesh backups or the redundant links within the system. So what this will do is, as a radio, if any one of them were to fail, then what it will do is it will take the backup link and automatically reroute to those individual backup links based upon which routes are currently available. And it will do this automatically. Now, as you can see, this is going to be a much more complex, or potentially can be a much more complex network to program. So how do we actually do it? This is really where the power of this Horizon Network Manager comes in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just throw this up here in the corner so we can keep it. And to save a little bit of time, instead of adding each one of these radios in individually, I've actually started the network. And so to look up or bring or to open a network that's already been saved, we just simply hit load saved network, select where it's at. I currently have it on the desktop, and I have it called the ESTeem Network, the Horizon Network Manager, and click open. And what this will do is this automatically saved almost all of the sites within this network as we had it programmed here on the screen. So this just was to simplify how this is actually done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the master site and I'm going to add in the mobile site just to give you an idea of how that's actually done. So just like we learned with the 2 node, it's just as simple as you go under radio, hit new radio, put in the serial number for the radio we're going to be added. So we're going to add in 23453, click OK. This will be our new master radio. We're going to bring it over here, and you can lay it out in almost the exact same way that your network diagram is. So it's going to make more logical sense when you actually see it. Now again, To create this in a master site, you'd think this would be one of the most complicated parts of the system. Quite honestly, all we need to do is create within the network manager the exact same type of layouts that we had on our diagram. So we take our master site and we draw it to the first repeater. This is going to take the link. And as you notice, the color of that first repeater site actually changed. That means that we need to update the configuration in that radio to make this link function within this network. We also want to add a redundant or a backup link from the master up to this first remote location. Now, as you notice here, it is a little bit different because we have dash lines on some of these, which denotes the backup links, but this one is currently solid. Well, each one of these elements within the Horizon Network Manager is actually an active element. And what I mean by that is if I click on this line and I actually double click, it will actually bring up the characteristics for each one of these connections. You can actually go in and you can set the path length or that's currently going to be setting the priority. You can go in there and look at what is the encryption level on these. What rates are they operating? And as Dad mentioned, you can get even complicated in there. You can set specific data rates for it. You can set the timeouts. You can actually get in and set the mobile thresholds for it, the throttling. All of these different elements that you can do when you're configuring this wireless link can be done by simply clicking on any one of these given elements. So the only change we really are concerned with is making sure this is a backup link, which is going to give this path link a priority of 2. We select OK, and as you'll notice, what it did on the screen is changed it from the solid line into a dash line so that we can visually easily identify which points in the network are the primary links and which are going to show up as the backup links. So the only other radio that we need to add to this network is going to be the roaming or the mobile network. Well, that's also can be done by simply adding radio, new radio. We type in the serial number 23412, click OK. Now, what's going to be different about this is that it has no specific radio that it's going to tie to. It's actually going to be in a roaming mode. Well, the mode of the radio can be adjusted within this network manager also. If you double click on the radio, you can actually get in and edit the radio configuration, not only in the basic parameters, but all the way into the advanced variables within it also. So all of the control, everything that you would do as far as the programming, the advanced configuration within this network can be done within this Horizon Network Manager. Now, of course, all of these are available individually within the web browser, but this gives you one single location to where all these radios can be stored. So if we're going to make this a mobile device, we just simply select a different mode of operation. Instead of being a bridge link, it's actually going to be one of the different mobile links or the station links. So we're going to say, let's want this to be a station bridge. We select next. It's going to be a DHCP. It's going to be off. We give it an IP. We're going to actually use a MIMO or a dual polarity radio. We're going to match up our uh, radio configuration as far as the passphrase to get into any one of these radios. And then we simply hit commit. Once this is done, then you'll actually see that now this becomes a station bridge. It will be a functioning radio within our network, but it is not going to have any direct tie to it. And an easy visual indicator for that is you'll notice there are no boxes within that to actually tie a link into. So now what we've done is we've created this very complex network by simply recreating it in a visual standpoint. So if we wanted to save all this information, all we need to do is just simply come up here and go File, Save Network, and what we'll do is we'll just update the one we currently have. We'll go back to the desktop, Horizon Network Manager, save it. Yes, I want to overwrite it. Now this is our new network. Just that simple. Okay. Once we've done this, another beautiful feature of this is if we want to preserve this or we want to send this off to support, this is how my network is laid out. You can actually go under File, Snapshot, and what this will do is this will allow us to actually create a simplified snapshot of the actual network itself. So I'm going to hit Save. It's going to add it to my desktop. I'm going to grab that, open this up, and then you'll notice that what it'll do is it'll tell us the network type, the frequency, what bandwidth we're operating, the total radio count, and as you'll notice, all the radios as we've seen before. So this is an incredibly powerful tool for preserving and documenting how the network is actually laid out. So the last feature that we really want to go over on the programming side of this is now that we've got this very complex network, what are some of the features we can do to it? Well, if, for example, we needed to change the network name, we can select all the radios within there. You can select them individually by holding down the Control key and selecting them. Or you can actually just hit Control A, will select all the radios in the network. From here, we can actually adjust the global variables under Edit, Global Settings, and if you see here, we've got the SSID was to the Horizon Network Manager is the one that I previously saved. If you wanted to change the bandwidth, you wanted to change the channel they're operating on, you can actually modify that within here. The beautiful part of this is you can actually go in and adjust major parameters within the radio, such as if we go under Edit, under radio, we can actually update the firmware on all the radios within the network without having to go individually do this. The beautiful part about this is it is actually very smart in the way that it knows where you're at within the network. So if you're making adjustments to it and you're at the master, what it will do is it will calculate out what is the furthest location within the network and start making changes at the furthest point and walking it back in. So if it's going through different repeaters, it will make adjustments to the remotes before it makes adjustments to the repeaters. It is very network aware. So these are some of the key programming variables that we can get in and modify. As Dan mentioned to you also, we actually have a second side of this, which allows us to actually monitor this. Now what I have is I have two different networks set up here in our facility. And so if I hit Discover Networks, what we're going to find is that I have two different 2.4 gigahertz networks set up. The first one is configured in a mesh configuration. And the next one is configured in a new mode that we're releasing right now called the Rapid Ready Link. We're going to actually have a full webinar on what the Rapid Ready Link does, but I wanted to give kind of an introduction on what it will look like, even provided though you're not necessarily going to use this Horizon Network Manager to do a Rapid Ready Link network. The tools within here are still available and can be used for that type of network. So let's start with the mesh one. If I double click on the mesh, what it's going to do is it's actually going to put our mesh network that I have saved or that it can found and display them on the screen. So I'm going to move them around just so that we can see them a little bit better. Radio 1, Radio 2, and Radio 3. Now you'll notice on here that each one of these boxes has two independent boxes within it. Quite honestly, they are nothing more than a visual indicator. There is nothing um, explicitly important about which side of it's on. The reason that they're on there is it just helps keep the lines from overdrawing the boxes. So if I take this one and I move it out far enough, you'll notice that it'll snap into the individual box that best allows it to display. So I did want to make that as a point to show you that it does not matter which side of the network we're actually clicking into. So if I spread these out a little bit, just so we can see how the monitoring works, these three radios are already programmed and talking to each other. So to find out how well they're talking to each other, we can go up under Monitoring, select Start Monitoring, and what it will do is it will start sending out data requests for each one of these radios, and it'll tell us, okay, we're operating at a minus 46 dBm. That's what this radio 1 is receiving from radio 2. It's receiving a minus 49 from radio 3, and it's actively updating these as the network is progressing. You can actually get in and go into the settings and tell it how often you want that update to be brought into it. So what you're doing is we've created a miniature or just a specific m- monitoring or an HMI platform for the radio network itself. Now, you can also gather this information through Modbus TCP if you want to integrate the same type of variables into your existing HMI network. These tools are also available. But we've incorporated this into the configuration file because that's where you're going to be starting with. So it allows you to actually find out once the radios are configured and installed, how well they're actually operating. As you'll notice here, because they're in a mesh format, one of the links on here is a little bit different because you see here it's actually blocking. What that's saying is that radio number one is configured as the root bridge. So one of these links between here has to be blocked so that we don't create this network loop. This is all based on spanning tree, the way that standard spanning tree operates. But the beautiful part is the monitor will actually tell you which link within the network is going. So if any one of these links are turned off, you turn off radio 3. Well, it's not, that's going to be the poor example of it, but if radio 1 were to be turned off, this link would go from blocking to forwarding so that radio 2 and radio 3 could communicate to each other. All right, so let me go ahead and turn this off. Let me close this network down. Now, the only thing that's any different between that and a Rapid Ready Link network is if we open up the Rapid Ready Link network, you'll see on here that we have a visual indication by having a red box. Now, what this is telling us then is that we can't make specific layout links to radios within this Rapid Ready. The Rapid Ready configuration is done so that it automatically detects and will create these bridge links for you automatically. Any radio that it can find, it's going to automatically create that link. But we don't want to take out this monitoring feature from the Horizon Network Manager because it's a very powerful tool. So if we go into monitoring, hit start monitoring, the same type of network information can be brought into a Rapid Ready network as we can find in a actually hard or a fixed configuration network. So overall, these are very, very powerful tools. There's a lot of information that can be gathered and saved from here, but this webinar really is designed to give you an overview of what the capabilities, what are some of the most powerful features that we have within this utility. And we actually are going to be doing continuing this webinar series out with the different programs within that utility. And I think that is going to cover everything that we've got on this one. Did you have any questions, Dan? Did anybody come up with any questions on what we might want to do? I want to get further information on?
No, no, I think you explained it well. There's no questions there, and I think if you have any questions, I mean, don't hesitate to give us a call or a quick email or anything like that as well. Um, but I think you did a great job.
Great. That's great. And of course, we will take any questions that anybody has. If you've got any questions on how this works, we're going to save a copy of this. And if you want to go back and review it, but as I mentioned to you too, we're also going to do a presentation really on all the individual tools within that software suite. So I think this is probably a good place to, I want to thank everybody for coming in today, and it's a great place for us to stop.